Hi, in this lesson I'm going to be talking about how to solve basic linear basic equations, which are really useful for 11 plus, and then here 5, 6, 7 as it goes more complicated one leading to year 8. Okay, so we're going to learn how to do the basic equations. In many basic equations you have two sides. So if I write the one very basic equation, 2x plus 10 equals 18. Okay, and you're asked how to solve and find x. We have to think about the equations which have two sides to it. As you can see, we have the left hand side and the right hand side. In any equation, you try to keep all the unknowns in your one side, whichever side you like. In this case, we keep them in left hand side, and all the knowns on the other side, which is on the right hand side. So what we're talking about, unknowns obviously is the one that you want to find. In this case, x is unknown, so we try to keep all the x's one side. The numbers are known to us, we know what numbers are, so we keep the numbers on the other side. One very basic rule in mathematics, whenever you're dealing with an equation, is that you can move any of these terms, each one of them is called a term, from one side to another side. And all you have to do really is change the sign. So if I take this number to the other side, then I can write this 2x equals 18. I keep the 18 where it is, and I move the 10 from left hand to the right hand side, but I have to change the sign. Okay, and then 2x equals 8, and therefore what number is multiple to x to be 8? Obviously x is 4. But from this early time, I need you to learn that in equations, when you have 2x equals 8, x is unknown, you can always say that x equals the number in front of the other side, 8, divided by the number that multiplies to x, which is what we call the coefficient of x, the number that multiplies to x, 2. So 8 divided by 2 makes a fraction, and that's 4. Okay? Of course, at this earlier stage, you can just write, of course, the number 2 times 4 is 8, so x equals 4. This is fundamentally the correct way of doing it, because later on, as the algebraic equations become harder and harder, that will help you to solve other questions. So what did we do? We have an equation which is a very basic equation. You were asked solve to find x, and in order to solve any equation, which is a basic linear equation, we take the numbers to one side and keep the unknowns in one side, and we solve it that way. Let's do another one. So this time I'm going to write 3x plus 6 equals 2x plus 7. I hope you noticed that this one have x's both sides, or unknowns both sides of equation, and numbers both sides. So I know that if I want to solve this equation, I have to take all my unknowns to one side and all the knowns or numbers to another side. Okay? Also, one rule we learned is that if I move anything from one side to another side, I have to change the sign. Okay? So I'm going to, first of all, take the 2x to this side. So I'm going to have 3x. 2x is plus here. If it comes here, you change the sign, it becomes minus 2x. The numbers, 7 stays where it is, but 6 goes that side and become minus 6. So 3x minus 2x is just x. 7 minus 6 is 1. And that way I've solved my equation. That's what I was told, solve to find x. Okay? Now, I can explain to you why I make it very simple, really, telling you that if you take a number to either side, we change the sign. Okay, other teachers might tell you that if you have 3x plus 6, okay, you can subtract a number from both sides. So if I subtract minus 6 this side and minus 6 this side, minus 6 and plus 6 cancel out, and I'll end up with 3x, and then 2x stays here, and minus 6 still there, right? That's the way I wrote it there. But I think this is quite valid argument. But I think it's too much for a student who just learning mathematics. All you have to do, whenever you move an item, a term, from one side of an equation to another side, you change the sign. That's a much easier way to learn it. Okay? So I did two movements. I moved the 2x from right hand side to the left hand side, and as you saw, I moved the 6 from left hand side to the right hand side. Then I said basic 3x minus 2x is x, 7 minus 6 is 1. And I've solved my equation. Okay? Of course, not all this linear equation will be this easy to do, but everything we learn in mathematics start from the very basic rules. And actually these basic rules are the most important, because these rules will help you to do the more complicated questions. I'm hoping that you know how to expand brackets, because next question will have brackets in it. So I can write this one as 2 times x plus 4, okay, equals x, and then I can write plus 18. And again, I've been told solve to find x. In order to solve to find x, the first thing you have to do, use your knowledge of expansion of bracket. I will make a video for expansion of bracket very soon. So at this minute, I'm saying this is a basic expansion. You multiply 2 to the x, that's 2x. You multiply 2 to the 4 with the sign. Plus times plus is plus, 2 times 4 is 8. And keep the other side as it is. Now, we have what we had there, correct? I'm moving the x to this side, so therefore change the sign, correct? 2x minus x. And if I move the 8 to the right hand side, obviously I change the sign again. 2x minus x gives you x, and 18 minus 8, it gives you 10. And that's the answer. What happened here in the second example, you had a bracket, and in order to solve to find x, I have to expand the bracket and simplify. So expanding the bracket, you multiply to the first term and then the second term, whatever is outside the bracket. 2 times x to x, 2 times 4 is 8. And now I'll come back to this rule. I need to bring all my unknowns one side and numbers or knowns to other side. I've got an x on that side and I've got the 2x in this side. I'm taking this x to this side. If you want to do that, I have to... Okay, so all I have to know is that I'm going to move terms to comply with this rule from one side to another side. Anytime I move any of these terms, I change the sign. If I do that and then simplify, I can manage to find x. Okay, we can do a little bit a more difficult question now. Still, we are trying to learn all types of basic linear equations and how to solve them. Could be that you got given something like 4 times 2x plus 1 plus 5 equals, then I've got 6 times x, okay, plus 5. Again, plus 6. Okay, this is a linear equation, and I was asked solve to find x. How can I solve to find x? I have to expand the brackets first. And expanding the brackets, I'm assuming that you know how to expand the brackets. I can quickly go through it. If I have a bracket, a number before it, I'll multiply what's outside the bracket to the first term. 4 times 2x is 8x. Then I multiply the same thing to the second term. 4 times plus 1 is plus 4. Plus 5. I'll do the same thing, and I end up with 36. Okay, so I expanded my brackets. Now I need to change and move things, all the unknowns one side and all the knowns one side. So I've got to keep the 8x this side as it is. If I bring the 6x here, I have to change the sign. Okay, 4 plus 5 is 9. If I take it to the other side, I will have 36 minus 9. Okay, and this is 2x, 8x minus 6 is 2x. What is 36 minus 9? So that gives you 27. And therefore now, on purpose, give you some numbers which is not rounded up. So x is the number in front divided by coefficient of x, the number that multiplies to x. And I say that 27 divided by 2 as a fraction is 13 and a half. So 13 and a half, I can write it as 13 and a half. You can always leave the answers in fractions, but remember, in mathematics, whenever you write a fraction, you have to get it simplified. The simplest form of a fraction is required. Okay? And look back at this question. This is a typical sort of 11 plus question, or year 7, year 6. I've got two brackets. I'm going to expand the brackets first. 4 times 2, 8x. 4 times 1, plus 4. But I still have the plus 5, which I have to write this side. I've got the equation sign, then I've got the expand this bracket. 6 times x is 6x, and 6 times 6 is 36. So far so good. We got 8x plus 9, 6x plus 36. Now coming back to this rule, if I want to solve any equation, I have to bring all my unknowns to one side, to the left hand side. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be left hand side or right hand side, as long as it to be one side. So I'll take the 6x and bring it this side, but I change the sign. Anytime you move a term from one side to another side, you change the sign. So that's minus 6, and 36 stays, but 9 goes that side. Then it's 8x minus x, 2x. 36 minus 9 is 27. Then we always say x equals the number in front divided the coefficient of x, the number that multiplies to x. Okay? And this time we have a fraction answer, but as I explained to you before, if you have any fractions, you need to make it the simplest form. So of course I can simplify this improper fraction, and the answer then is 13 and a half. Okay? So these are the sort of medium to hard questions, and you always expand brackets, simplify, bring all the unknowns one side, knowns the other side, and solve the equation. There's only one more types of the linear equation that you have to learn, and that's when we have fractions. Okay? For example, you have x over 4, okay, and that's equals to, let's say, 3 over 5. Okay, but I would like to emphasize here that whenever in any equations you see two fractions equaling each other, we can, some teachers might tell you that multiply by 4, multiply by 5. You don't need to do that. There's a certain rules that I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, look, I'm going to write here a very valid equation. You all agree that 2/3 equals to 2/3. This is a valid equation. Okay, don't forget, in this equation I have two fractions each side of an equation. Now look what happened. You agree with me, this is a very valid equation. If I multiply numerator, denominator, denominator, numerator, I'm going to have 2 times 3. Then I have the equation sign. Equation sign doesn't go away. Then I have the other side also, I have 2 times 3. Okay? By multiplying numerator, denominator, and also denominator, numerator, I've got rid of my fractions. Okay? So this phenomenon here, this method always becomes very handy in a lot of different parts of mathematics. Whenever you see a fractions in equations, you multiply across. Okay? I hope you remember this part to solve any fractions in equations. Now what happens here if I multiply 5 times x equals 3 times 4 is 12. Okay? So what happens suddenly? I got rid of my fractions. And I've got the normal linear equations. And then I'm going to say in this case x equals the number in front divided by the number that multiplied to x, which is the coefficient of x. So how many 5s in 12? Obviously 2 and 2/5. The answer is a fraction, and I make sure it's the simplest form. Okay? A lot of 11 plus questions. You have just about a minute to answer the question. You get x over 5 equals 3. What is x? Well, any number in mathematics can become a fraction. For example, if you have 10, I can make this 10 over 1. By giving the 1 as a denominator, you change the number to fractions. This is very simple. So if you have 7, I can make this as 7 over 1. The 3 here, I can change the 3 to 3 over 1. I don't change anything. Remember, in mathematics, you can play with numbers and terms, but you cannot change them. These equations, you cannot change anything. So instead of 3, I wrote 3 over 1, which is very valid. And having got that, remember what we did here. You multiply across. So 1 times x is x, 3 times 5 is 15, and that way you solve the equation. I hope we've gone through all different types of the linear equations. The main rule really is that when you're asked to find an unknown, I mean in this case it was x, it could be y, z, t. You bring all the unknowns, the letters that you don't know what it is, to one side. I mean in these cases I chose left hand side, but it could be on right hand side. It doesn't make any difference. And then in these numbers cases, number is a known item in mathematics. So I'll try to make all the numbers to one side and then we solve it. We're done with the fractions. With the brackets, we expanded the brackets and then we solved the equation previously. And this part, when you have a fraction in equations, and this goes all the way to the A level, you can get rid of a fraction by multiplying across. So I multiplied 5 times x and I multiplied 4 times 3. Having done that, I got rid of my fractions. Once you got no fractions, the rest should be very easy. Okay? And that's how you solve all types of equations, which what we call them linear equations, because x is a power of 1. There is no power on x. I hope this first lesson about basic equations is going to be helpful for you to solve these sort of questions. Thanks very much for watching, and